Hello! New unique and diverse stories from Reddit in a new video on the Evening Story channel. Enjoy!
One summer, a group of friends decided to go on a camping trip in the woods. They had heard stories about a mysterious creature named Lemis that supposedly lived in the area. But they didn't pay much attention to it. One night, as they sat around the campfire, they heard strange noises coming from the forest. At first, they thought it was just an animal. But the sounds continued, becoming louder and more unsettling. Suddenly, they saw a figure emerging from the trees. It was a tall, thin creature with glowing eyes and long, spindly arms. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. The creature stood there for a moment, then disappeared back into the woods. The friends were shaken by the experience, but decided to investigate further. They began researching Lemis and discovered that it was a legendary creature in local folklore. According to the stories, it was a malevolent entity that preyed on humans who dared to venture into its territory. Determined to uncover the truth, the friends set up cameras and traps in the woods. They spent several nights on the lookout, but nothing happened. Just when they were about to give up, they captured footage of the creature on camera. The video was grainy, but it clearly showed a tall, thin figure with glowing eyes, just like the creature they had seen before. The friends were both excited and terrified by the discovery. They had uncovered evidence of a creature that many believe was just a myth. To this day, the friends continue to investigate and document their experiences with Lemis. Some believe that the creature is an extraterrestrial being, while others think it may be a supernatural entity. Regardless of its origins, the friends are convinced that Lemis is real and that it poses a threat to anyone who ventures into the woods.
It was a dark and stormy night when I heard a knock on my door. As a private investigator, I was used to unexpected visitors, but this one was different. It was a woman with tears streaming down her face, begging for my help to find her missing daughter. I took the case and started my investigation. It didn't take long to find out that the daughter was involved with a dangerous gang. I tracked down some of the members and learned that they had kidnapped her and were holding her for ransom. With the help of my contacts in the criminal underworld, I was able to arrange a meeting with the gang leader. He was a ruthless man with no mercy for those who crossed him. I had to tread carefully, but I was determined to get the girl back. I came to the meeting armed with evidence of the gang's illegal activities, and I made it clear that I was not afraid to use it. After a tense negotiation, I was able to strike a deal to secure the girl's release. But the story didn't end there. The gang leader wasn't one to let things go easily. He started sending his goons after me, trying to take me out. I had to constantly watch my back and stay one step ahead of them. In the end, I was able to bring the gang to justice and reunite the mother and daughter. It was a harrowing experience, but it was worth it to see justice served and a family reunited.
It was a dark and stormy night when I witnessed the most terrifying car accident of my life. I was driving home from a late-night shift when I saw a car in the distance swerve out of control and spin across the road. It collided with another vehicle, causing a deafening crash. I pulled over and rushed to the scene, my heart racing with fear. The wreckage was horrendous: twisted metal, broken glass, and mangled bodies scattered everywhere. It was a miracle anyone was still alive. The police and ambulance arrived quickly, but it was clear that the situation was dire. The driver of the first car was pinned inside, unconscious and bleeding profusely. The driver of the other vehicle was slumped over the steering wheel, unresponsive. As I watched the emergency responders work frantically to free the truck driver, I couldn't help but think about how easily this could have been me or someone I love. It was a sobering reminder of how dangerous the roads can be, especially in bad weather. The injured were rushed to the hospital, and I couldn't help but wonder if they would make it. The memory of that accident still haunts me to this day, and I will never forget the horror of that dark and stormy night on the road.
It was the summer of 2015, and my girlfriend at the time, let's call her Sarah, and I had been together for a year. We were both in our mid-20s, and things were going well. We went on trips together, had fun outings, and enjoyed each other's company. One day, we went out to a local park to have a picnic and spend some time together. We had a great time, and as the sun started to set, We decided to pack up and head home. As we were driving home, Sarah suddenly started acting strange. She was quiet and distant, and wouldn't say much when I tried to talk to her. I assumed that she was just tired from our day out, so I didn't push the issue. The next day, I received a call from her, and she told me that she needed to talk to me in person. We arranged to meet up later that day, and when we did, she told me that she had been contacted by someone claiming to be her ex-boyfriend. This person had reached out to her on social media and had been messaging her for a few weeks. At first, Sarah thought it was just someone playing a prank, but as the messages continued, she started to realize that it was indeed her ex-boyfriend. He had been following her on social media and knew all about our relationship. The messages were threatening, and her ex-boyfriend was demanding that she break up with me and get back together with him. Sarah was terrified and didn't know what to do. She had tried to ignore the messages, but they just kept coming. We went to the police and filed a report, but they told us that they couldn't do much without concrete evidence. We changed our phone numbers and social media accounts, but the messages still continued. After a few weeks of this, Sarah decided that it was too much for her to handle and broke up with me. She didn't want to put me in danger and felt that it was better to end things before they got worse. To this day, I still don't know who was behind those messages or what their intentions were. It was a strange and unsettling situation that ended up costing me my relationship. But in the end, I'm just glad that Sarah and I both came out of it unharmed.
A strange incident during my trip to Cambodia. I recently went on a solo trip to Cambodia to explore the country and its rich history. Well, I had an incredible time overall. There was one incident that I still can't quite explain. It all started when I arrived in Siem Reap and checked into my hostel. The first night, I went out to grab some dinner at a nearby restaurant. I was sitting outside enjoying my meal when a man approached me and struck up a conversation. He was friendly enough and seemed genuinely interested in chatting. So we talked for a bit. However, things took a strange turn when he suddenly asked if I wanted to buy some drugs. I declined. But he persisted, even going so far as to offer to take me to his secret spot where he had more. I firmly declined again and made an excuse to leave. The next day, I visited Angkor Wat and the other temples in the area. It was an amazing experience, and I was completely absorbed in the beauty and history of the place. But as I was leaving, I noticed the same man from the night before lurking nearby. He seemed to be watching me, and I felt uneasy. I quickly walked away and tried to put him out of my mind. But that night, when I returned to my hostel, I found that my room had been ransacked. My backpack was open and all of my valuables, including my passport, were missing. I immediately went to the hostel staff and the police to report the theft. But here's where things get really strange. The police seemed completely uninterested in helping me. They barely took any notes and seemed to brush off the incident as if it were no big deal. I was at a loss for what to do. But then the man from the night before approached me again, this time claiming that he could help me get my passport back. He said he had connections and could make it happen for a price. I was desperate and didn't know what else to do, so I agreed to meet with him. We went to a seedy bar where he introduced me to a few shady-looking characters. They took my money and said they would take care of it. Miraculously, the next day, my passport was returned to me. I still don't know what really happened or who was involved. But I learned a valuable lesson about being careful when traveling alone and trusting strangers.
I had a crazy situation at work that I just have to share on Reddit. I work at a small tech startup, and things were going great until we brought on a new project manager. This guy seemed nice at first, but as time went on, he became increasingly difficult to work with. He would micromanage every little thing, constantly change deadlines, and generally made the work environment incredibly stressful. The situation came to a head when he started accusing me of not doing my job properly. I had been putting in long hours and going above and beyond, but he still insisted that I wasn't doing enough. It got to the point where he threatened to fire me if I didn't work weekends to catch up on work that wasn't even mine to begin with. I tried talking to the CEO about it, but he seemed to be taking the project manager's side. It was clear that something was going on behind the scenes, and I had no idea what it was. Finally, one day, the project manager didn't show up for work. We tried calling him, but he didn't answer. After a few hours, we got a call from his wife, telling us that he had been arrested for embezzlement. It turns out that he had been stealing money from the company and trying to cover it up by blaming others for his mistakes. In the end, the CEO apologized to me for not believing me, and I got a raise and a promotion for all the hard work I had been doing. It was a crazy situation, but it just goes to show that sometimes things really do work out in the end.
My grandpa was a man of few words. But when he did speak, it was always something important. One day, when I was a teenager, he took me aside and told me a story that has stayed with me ever since. He told me about a place in the woods near our home, a place he used to play in as a child. He said that one day, he and his friends stumbled upon a strange door in the ground. They were curious, so they opened it up and found a long staircase leading deep underground. They went down the stairs and found themselves in a vast underground chamber, filled with strange machines and devices they had never seen before. There were symbols carved into the walls and a strange energy in the air. As they explored the chamber, they found a series of rooms, each containing a different mystery. One room was filled with ancient scrolls and books, written in languages they couldn't read. Another room contained strange instruments, and yet another was filled with jars of strange, glowing substance. But the most disturbing room was the last one. It contained a large, glass tank, filled with a strange, glowing liquid. And inside the tank was a creature unlike anything they had ever seen before. It was humanoid in shape, but covered in scales and with eyes that glowed with an eerie light. My grandpa and his friends were terrified by the sight of the creature and ran back up the stairs as fast as they could. They never spoke of what they saw to anyone else, and the door in the ground was eventually covered over with brush and forgotten. I never knew what to make of my grandpa's story. Was it just a fanciful tale he made up to entertain me, or was there something more to it? To this day, I wonder about the strange door in the woods, and what might be hidden deep beneath the ground.
One day, I went to a restaurant to grab a quick lunch during my break. I ordered a sandwich and a drink and waited for it to be prepared. As I was eating, I noticed something strange in my food. It looked like a small piece of metal, and it was sharp. I immediately stopped eating and called over the waiter to show them what I had found. They were horrified and called the manager to come and speak with me. The manager apologized profusely and said that they would investigate how this could have happened. The police were called, and I filed a report. The restaurant was temporarily closed while the investigation took place. It turned out that someone had intentionally put the metal piece in my food as a malicious act. The investigation revealed that it was one of the employees who had done it, and they were immediately fired. It was a very scary situation, and it made me wonder how many times this had happened before without anyone noticing. I learned to be more vigilant about checking my food before eating it, even if it's from a reputable restaurant. It's important to always be aware of your surroundings and take precautions to protect yourself.